Hey team, and welcome. I'm your host, Carrie, creator of Mother Life, your destination for all things real talk and parenting. This is the IRL group chat, where we talk about the wild balancing act of pursuing careers and passions while also doing our best to show up for our kids. Join me every week as I sit down with some badass parents in my closet and we talk about their careers, kids, and relationships and all of the weird shit that comes up when you're trying to balance the seemingly impossible. A career or two ago, what seems like a lifetime ago, I spent about a decade traveling to a lot of poor countries. I met people who were both extremely wealthy and those that were barely scraping enough together to feed their families. I always marveled, still do, when I spend time with people who have so much, and yet laughter doesn't come easily. While at the same time spending time with people who have very little and the jokes and the good times flow. I've always used that very cliche concept that money can't buy happiness to settle my gut. Anytime I get overly worried about money or life planning, remembering that we can make do with less and that I can do that and still be happy. That my worth and my wealth in this life isn't tied to my bank account. Add that to my ever-growing list of things I hope my kids will one day find for themselves. Today's guest personifies what it is to find wealth in the places that count and laugh at the rest of it. Bobby Collins is a stand-up comedy legend. He came up through the ranks with Jay Leno, Drew Carey, Jerry Seinfeld, Rosie O'Donnell, among others. Where others may have migrated to TV, Bobby has always known where his home is, the stage. From The Late Show to touring with Cher and Julio Iglesias to his current tour, the man channels his upbringing, honing his observational style with his mom on the New York subway and putting it into his work all these years later. As father to two young women, both on very different paths in their lives, Bobby wakes up every day with a clear vision and sense of purpose. Enjoy this conversation. I'm only sorry you won't get to listen to it while enjoying his wife's green juice like I did. Normally I would say, Bobby, welcome to the closet. But today I'll say, welcome to your own ADU. No, we have to be authentic about where we are. But what we do is we're gonna talk about how you grew up and what little Bobby was like, because it is a very particular person who pursues stand-up comedy as a career, and I know that you tried other stuff. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about when parenting enters the picture and what that's been like for you and for your partnership and all those things. But don't worry, I'm going to get us there. We can do it. Okay? Okay. Little Bobby.
Yes.
Is a New Yorker through and through. And you're one of four, right?
Yes.
You're the youngest?
How'd you know?
I do my best to read a little bit before I show up.
Right.
And what kind of household was it like growing up?
My father was a insurance guy that traveled we lived in Queens, brought up in Queens. They called them garden apartments. I never saw a plant or a flower. They were really army barracks. We were poor. And everyone around us was poor, and we didn't know the difference. So we were all happy, and we all, black, white, Puerto Rican, we all hung out together. We didn't judge anyone, because we looked at anyone that would judge anyone, we would look and you go, what's the matter with you?
Yeah, what the fuck is wrong with you?
For example, there was a special needs kid, a Down syndrome kid, named Julius. And he lived not far with us, and we'd hang out. He'd come with us to hang out. And then a couple of times, my mother caught guys making fun of him, call him retarded, you retarded bastard. So my mother told us, you and your brother, go find those guys and let them know and make them apologize. Oh, we made him apologize. My mother just had that good attitude about everyone treated alike. So Julius was great. He was great. And his mother and father loved us, the family, and all that. So we always looked out after Julius.
You protect your own.
Always.
I love that. And there's probably a little bit of foreshadowing that we'll get to there for the story.
But we grew up poor. We were poor. Matter of fact, I'm laughing because my wife and I talk about Christmas. My mother had a tree maybe the size of my arm, and it was fake, but she used it every year. And she put it on books so it stood out in the window.
Aww.
And I remember my brother and I got 3 pairs of socks, and we had to split them. Isn't that crazy? So I said, well, wait a minute. You're older. Why don't you let me? I'm the younger brother. Let me have two pair and you keep one. No. We were poor, but poor didn't work. You know, like if one kid in the neighborhood got it, because we played basketball. If one kid in the neighborhood got a basketball, we all did because we all shared it, and that's how we were brought up.
And growing up, so dad's in insurance, mom's
a waitress.
Mom
was a waitress. She was a full-time. My father would leave at 6:30 in the morning, go into Manhattan. He wouldn't come home till 6 at night, and my mom would leave at I'd say about 10 in the morning and not come back till around 4 or 5 in Manhattan.
And where were you guys in the intervening hours? Once you have more than 2 kids, my brain just starts to black out.
Right. Well,
it's so much logistics.
Well, my older brother, Tommy, who's just passed away because of COVID.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Tommy he never lived with us. He lived with my grandparents. And because when my mother got pregnant again, we moved to New York from Massachusetts. I was not even born yet. And they left Tommy there because my sister was coming in.
That must have been a hard choice.
It was, I don't think with them, but it was for Tommy because I was the youngest. And I would tell him, Tommy, we live in the crappiest apartment. Me and Roy live in the same little bed. There's this much space between us. He rolls over, he hits me. And he goes like, really? I go, you got your own huge house. This is amazing. You got 12 rooms in this house. But you could see in his eyes the sadness he didn't have his family. Yeah,
I mean, I would rather be cramped up and getting kicked in the legs too. Right. That's hot. That's really tough.
I know.
So, okay, you're growing up. Mom's a waitress. There's let's say there's 3 of you then, because Tommy is with the grandparents.
Right.
You see your parents just working their asses off.
All the time.
And it sounds like everybody in the neighborhood, similar dynamic. There is no like luxury of a stay-at-home parent.
No. Everyone worked.
Everybody worked. And when you were growing up, were there things professionally that you gravitated towards? I mean, clearly you don't just wake up one day and decide you're a funny guy. Like clearly that's part of your personality. But what sorts of things did you think, oh, maybe I'll do this for a profession when I'm older?
When I was young, I was shy. And I noticed when we moved from Queens to Long Island, I noticed all the kids there had a lot of them had personality. I had personality, but I was shy. And I said to a friend of mine who was very shy too, and we were friends. And the first year I go, I'm going to start to hang out with those guys. They want me to hang out with them. He goes, I'm not going to have nothing to do with them. I go, why? He goes, I'm not like them. I get that. I go, and I saw that if you let your personality come out, and girls like funny guys.
That's true.
So I said, I'm going to do it.
A tale as old as time.
Right. So I did it. And I remember watching as a young kid, and I'd turn around in our poor apartment in Queens, and I'd see my mother and father sitting on the couch watching Red Skelton or the Ed Sullivan Show. And anytime a comic came in, I would turn around and look at them, and they would be laughing. And I just looked at it, and I said, I can do that. So I had 3 things I decided I wanted to do. When I got older, I was going to either be a pilot, design men's shirts.
Okay, niche.
Yeah. Or be a comedian. So those were my 3 choices.
Wow. So would we say you have a flair for style, or did at a young age that you were enjoying men's shirts?
I just knew that the shirts that people were wearing was not something that I would wear if I got a little older, that I can make it look better. And I still look at it. And then I ended up working for Calvin Klein.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Right. I don't know if it's crazy, but so your parents working really hard. You have an idea of what you want to do, the kind of things you might want to do. You're a shy guy. You shy because that's just sort of your natural state, or is it because you're the youngest, or what do you think made Bobby shy? Because you're not a shy guy now.
Well, I saw things like when I was on subways or something. I would look at people and I could it was a gift, I always thought, because my mother had it. You could look into people and see what they were hiding and see why they're doing this when they really should be doing. And I'd ask my mom about it. She goes, people put themselves out to be something that they're not. And she would teach me like things like that. And I saw, to this day, I could look between at an audience in a big theater, and I look behind the curtain, and you could tell, oh, wow, these people are smart. We're going to have a good time, and I can go off. Or these people aren't they high up on Brain Mountain, and I'm going to have to work harder.
So maybe you high up on Brain Mountain. So maybe it's not that you were shy, but you were just observing.
Yeah, I was observing.
So it's not like you were reticent to speak. It was more just like you were collecting information.
It's a pleasure to talk to a shrink.
Daughter of a shrink.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I know.
You're a special girl.
Well, I don't know.
And pretty.
Oh,
excuse me.
Did you hear what he said, guys? Everyone, please, for the record, somebody call my husband. He knows. Okay. So you have an idea of these things you want to be. Your contemporaries, your friends in the neighborhood, what's the sense of what everyone else wants to be? Do the things that you want to be stick out as unusual, or are all your friends sort of shooting around the same sort of... I mean, it would be considered fantastical to say, I want to be a comedian when I grow up.
Most of the kids, when we were young, wanted to be like whatever their fathers did.
Right.
And I didn't want any of that. Because I saw how, and then when we moved to Long Island, I saw he'd leave at 6 in the morning, take a train in, not come back till 6:30 at night, and he'd be in bed by 8. So fathering was not his.
Right.
Where my mother, me and her were tight. Mom and I were very tight over the other brother. She saw things that I saw, and we'd swear and laugh at him. Mom, what the fuck are you? And she'd go, I'm telling your father. She never told. We always were like that.
And what was I was going to ask sort of what was the parenting dynamic? You know what one of my husband's biggest complaints is? He hates how I organize or don't organize the kid shit, especially the diaper bag. He claims that if he knew where to easily find stuff, he'd use it more and, by proxy, take the kids out more on his own. Well, game on, sir. Get your own bag. The Gojo Backpack by Silverback Supply Company is the move. Designed by a dad who was also sick of his wife's diaper bag shenanigans, it's the perfect bag for living life with a baby. It's got a padded sleeve for your laptop or tablet, bungees to secure that blankie or stuffy, a built-in changing pad, and more. I know the tradition is that you buy a cutesy diaper bag for new moms at the baby shower. But what if we flipped the script, started buying gear for the dads, set the tone that they're equals in this thing right from the get-go? If you've got a dad to young kids, a dad that's expecting, or really any parent that's into minimalist, modern design and needs to lug some kid shit around, hit them with something different. Go to silverbacksupplyco.com and use discount code Mutha, MUTHA, for 20% off and free shipping and handling. I'll put a link in the show notes. Like, what happened if Bobby got in trouble? Did you ever get in trouble? Were you in mischief?
No,
you were a good boy.
No, I became, in high school, I became the president of my class and all that stuff because I played basketball and I was like the captain of the team and all that. It was just crap. We just whatever came up.
People wanted to listen to you and be around you. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. So you never were really getting in trouble. So did you have a sense of what kind of parents you had in terms of like what their value system is, what the sorts of things that they wanted for their kids were?
Yes. My father came from Massachusetts. And every year people even said to me, Bobby, you made the all-star team in baseball. You're not going to go to you're not going to play in the game? I go, no, I'm going to Nanny's house. Nanny's in Massachusetts. She belongs to a club. She's got a huge house. I got my own room. I go like this. They belong to the club. My brother works at the club, and I can order hamburgers and stuff like that. No, I'm not staying. I hate baseball. One guy throws a pitch, he scratches his balls, and then they count. 1, 2. No, I still hate it.
So you had a sense of kind of the things that mattered, and it sounds like that was family when you could have the time.
My
to be
father
together.
brought us up. He wasn't as like a father, but what he did was had the values of his family, which was work hard, take care of your family. And then I heard stories later, because I was the youngest, I heard stories later that really amazed me when my older sister told me that my father once beat my mother. And I was like,
Jesus Christ.
Where was I? You
Right.
know, I was the young one. I couldn't believe that.
Well, that's kind of the, like, I'm also the youngest of 3, but there's a blissful ignorance to being the youngest where you get to kind of have your own story of how everything was. And I like to think we're a little bit less fucked up.
Right.
Because like we don't carry around as much of the family trauma as everybody else who saw it a little bit more eyes wide open.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I'm following in my mother's footsteps as far as
Yeah.
craziness and fun and laughter. She was great.
Now, when you say your father wasn't really a father, does that mean he wasn't like putting his hand on your shoulder and saying sort of sage things and doing catch outside?
Matter of fact, my brother called me up. My older brother called me up. Not my oldest one who passed, the other one. He called me up like last year, and he said, "Bobby, are you sitting down?" I go, "No." What? He goes, "Did you ever do that 23andMe, that genealogy thing?" I go, "No." He goes, "I did a couple of times. You're my half brother." I go, "Who's the other half?" You know? And he goes, "Well, this family and this and that." I go, "I knew my mother was a little...
Had her dalliances?
I think, yes, thank you. And I knew that because I used to walk with her as a little boy, and I used to see guys in trucks and just would go by and, "Hey, late, hey, woman, hey, girl, you looking good." And she would, "Don't look at him, Bobby, just keep walking." She'd smile. She was a hottie. She was really pretty. And I would laugh, and I knew things about her that the other kids didn't know.
Right. Wow. So it's kind of like... a lot of family, there's a lot of layers to this family growing up. Like a lot of everybody's kind of withholding different little pieces. Everybody has their own version of what the family looks like. Right. Tommy in Massachusetts has a totally different experience of his family than you do all the way on the other side. And were you and all of your siblings very close?
Not really. I wouldn't say. I think we've gotten closer as we've gotten older because they've seen me performing or on television and things like that. And then they go, so we've gotten closer that way. My sister, she divorced her husband and then she went gay. So she
went gay.
Bobby. You know what I mean. Now she's married to a lady that's been for 30 years.
Got it.
And my other brother, he's been married 3 or 4 times.
Sure.
And he was the smartest guy, but I don't know what he does. He's an artist. He literally takes things, people call him from museums and ask him to fix things.
Wow.
And he does. He's really talented.
Wow. So everybody is kind of on their own path, getting closer later in life.
Yes.
Because I think when you're older, you start to see each other as people.
Right.
Whereas for so long, like I know for me as the youngest, I'm always like, when are my siblings going to take me seriously? Like they still think I am 5 or whatever.
You're the youngest. You're the kid.
Like I'm always going to be the baby.
Right.
Like I'm constantly like still sending my brother stuff being like, "Look what I did at work." And he's just like, cool.
Nice. Right.
But you will always be the youngest if you're the youngest, I guess.
Before my father passed away, he called me in. He was in the hospital, and he called me in alone, and he said, "Bobby, when I pass, keep an eye on your brother and your sister, your 2 brothers and your sister."
Wow.
I go, "Dad, what do you mean?" He goes, "Look, just call them. Call them once a week just to see how they are." And I have for years, and every Sunday. And when they're not home, I just leave a message and hang up quick.
There's always one sibling in the family who... I don't know if how many people are getting directives on deathbeds, but like who are just like that person.
Right.
Because it's never everybody.
For example, when my mother was in her last days and she was in hospice, we all went to see her. She's got a picture of Mother Teresa and me, and 8x10 and me. And
I'm sure that made your siblings feel great.
There, and I lean over to her, I kiss her, I go, "Ma, put the other kids' pictures on the walls."
I'm sure that made them feel wonderful. But they also probably were like, of course.
Yeah.
Because they're not stupid.
You were the closest to Mom. You were the closest to them.
And seeing all this growing up in like a kind of complicated dynamic, it sounds like, even though you didn't really realize it was complicated at the time. Did you have an idea in your mind, one day I want to have a family, one day I want to be a dad? Did you ever have any of those thoughts when you were younger, do you think?
Yes, I did. And I wanted to, no one's ever asked me that. And I wanted to do it the way that I know it should be done.
Right.
Especially like the way I see people do it in Massachusetts.
How do they do it in Massachusetts? I mean, we love Massachusetts for lots of reasons, so I want to know.
They're loving. They take care of their kids. They guide them. They, they do the right thing. And I've done that with my kids. Teach them how to ride a bike, laugh with them, do this, tell them things.
Just be present.
Be present. Be it.
Positive and present.
God first, family second, career third. Put one ahead of the other. You always got to get back where you got off.
I love that. So let's get to the career piece for a minute.
Okay.
So you've had some general ideas of the direction of travel. At what point do you make your first step onto the career ladder? And where were you in your life? What was that? Did you go to college?
Yes.
So you went to college. What did you study in college?
U.S. foreign policy.
Huh, like me. I'm that kind of nerd, too.
Right. And I taught high school up in Buffalo because I went to the University of Buffalo. I taught in Buffalo. I was a substitute teacher, $35 a day. And they said to me, look, everyone likes you. The principal called me down. They go, we have someone leaving. Would you take over? And I go, how much?
Yeah, of course.
And they go, I don't know, 135 or something.
Cha-ching.
I go, I'll do it. And I taught foreign policy. They were 12th graders, so it was like a choice to foreign policy.
Wow.
And I learned a lot because now I had an audience.
There you go.
You see it? I had an audience, and I would make them crack up.
And figure out how to get them to retain stuff.
Yes. And
hopefully.
People were like, oh, how do you do this?
Yeah.
So it came out that way.
Wow. And when did you move on from teaching to the next thing?
Well, then I moved back into Manhattan, and I got my own studio apartment.
Big deal.
$500 a month.
That's kind of expensive.
Back then.
Yeah, that was expensive.
But I bought it. Like 12 years later.
Wow.
For $55,000.
Oh, what neighborhood was it in?
12th and Broadway.
Oh,
the
God.
Village.
Oh, my God.
And
please tell me you held on to it for a long time.
I still have it. And I bought the apartment next door, which I bought it like 8 years ago for $675,000. And it was literally a larger studio.
Oh, my
But
God.
now I got a 40-foot deck. So I broke down the thing. Now we have the deck. So we have a home there. I love New York.
So do I.
Yeah,
I miss it. I miss it. So, okay, you move back to Manhattan. You move into the studio apartment.
Yeah.
First job is Garment District?
First job, what did I do? I sold jewelry because the guy at the...
You sure you're not Jewish?
Baruch atah
There
Adonai
you
Eloheinu.
go.
Page 222. Enkel. I've performed in Israel. A friend of mine, his family, and a girl turned me on to these people that had a booth and I still see them. The parents have died, but they still have the booth. And a matter of fact, I just saw them, and I still buy things from them. But they used to fill up my carry case, and I'd go into the garment center, and they'd go, the jewelry guy's here, Bobby's here. And they'd put me in one of the showrooms off to the side, and the girls would come in and buy jewelry. And most of them were Jewish, and they all bought jewelry.
Wow.
And I would make good money, but I didn't like doing it.
You're right.
So one day I went into one place, the guy from Calvin Klein, and he said, hey, come on over here, the president. I said, what's up? He said, listen, you come in here. I go, yeah, I always kick back some money for you guys for a holiday or something. I always kick. He goes, no, everyone here likes you. And would you consider working here? I go, how much? And at that time, a graduate of college was making $27,000.
Yeah.
And he said, $55,000. I go, when do I start?
Yeah, Jesus
And he
Christ.
said, how about Monday? I turned the jewelry in. I started Monday, and I became, after 6 months, they called me in, and they said, we'd like to talk to you about becoming executive vice president. I go, you have 6 of them. He goes like this. I go, does it mean more money? He goes, yeah. I go, you can call me emperor. But I didn't stay long because most of my jobs came from people around the country that came into New York to buy, and they all wanted Calvin Klein stuff.
Yeah.
But I'd asked all, like ladies like you, 12 of you, they'd come in and I'd show you the line, and then I'd say, what are you guys doing tonight? And they go, well, we're going to write up our orders, because they were afraid of New York.
Right, of course.
They'd stay in the hotel. I go, well, I'm performing at a place called Catch a Rising Star. I do stand-up comedy. Why don't you stop by? They would jam in because they had nowhere to go.
Right, and they knew it was safe because you were there.
My orders were huge.
Amazing.
So
But
that's why they offered me.
So we have to rewind. When did you first get on a stage and start doing stand-up?
I took a girl out on a date, and we went to Catch a Rising Star, and we're sitting there watching the comics, and I'm watching. That's when they had piano players bring up the next guy. One piano player would be on the stage and come into the stage, and he'd play him up, and I'd watch. God, what's his name? The lunatic. Everyone from. See my mind. I'm getting older now. Everyone from.
If I help you, it'll only make it worse. If I try and guess, then we'll never get there.
No, who's the guy who was on, he had his own TV comedy show. Jill would help me on this.
Johnny Carson?
No, he would come into the club. But the guys that performed was everyone that was older than our comics.
Got it.
Would come in. And I'd sit there and watch them, and the girl would hit me, and she goes, come on, let's get out of here. We saw 4 comics already. There's going to be another 5. I go, no, here's money. You go home. You take it. And I was like, I can do this. So I went over to the bartender. I says, how do you sign up? He goes, oh, you got to come in here on Monday afternoon and sign up for Monday night. And then they look at you and they like that.
See if you're any good.
Right. So I signed up. I went in. And after the first night, they said to me, yeah, okay, you're good. Yeah. You could sign up, but it wasn't for Friday or Saturday. That's what you wanted.
Right, that's the prime time.
Yeah.
You got to earn that.
So I started doing stand-up, and then I'd run down to a place down on 28th Street, and it was a club there, and I'd work there. Then I'd go down to the Improv down in the Village, and I'd work there. So you did everything.
Now, that first time you got on a stage, I feel like you often hear this story with stand-ups that the first time they go on, it's amazing. And the second time they go on, like they're like filled with some feeling of rightness, and it's so exhilarating, and like they get their first real laughs, and it just feels incredible. Right. And then the second or third time they go on, they bomb. And then it's kind of like chasing, like heroin, chasing the high of getting back to that first feeling. Right.
You got it.
Was that kind of your experience?
I didn't fail much. I didn't bomb. Matter of fact, I was doing good. And other people would come over to me and say to me, hey, where do you work a lot? I go, clubs. And then one day a guy came over to me and he said to me, here, give this card to your agent. I said, you mean my parents? Kidding. And he laughed, older man. And I called up a guy that was interested in me at ICM. His name was Steve Levine. Now he's with CAA. And he said to me, he goes, where'd you get that card? I go, an old man gave it to me. He goes, Bobby, you know who this is? That's Cher and Frank Sinatra's manager.
Jesus Christ.
And I ended up touring with them.
Wow.
And that was, you talk about wet under the arms and in between the legs.
Jesus Christ.
I remember the first date with Cher. We went out to some place in the Midwest, and there was 32,000 people outside. There was people up in trees. And they came over, and she was late. And they were pissed off because she's afraid of planes. So she does buses. And they're all going, where's the show? Now it's almost 40 minutes late. And they go, then she shows up. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome comedian Bobby Collins. Boo. Yeah. They wanted her.
Nightmare.
So I was dripping. But after 4 or 5 minutes, I got him. And then I ended up doing my 25. And I got a nice, but I was sopping wet. I was too much. And that broke a lot of things for me because I learned a lot.
And at what point do you say, I'm leaving the day job to do this full time?
Oh, I left it by that time. I
had left. Okay.
I was doing stand-up jobs when I was doing those comedy clubs in New York. I was getting jobs in New Jersey. I was getting jobs in Pennsylvania. You drive to them and do your jobs. Long Island.
But for the man who says, how much? Right. After every interaction on the career front, I can't imagine that stand-up all of a sudden, in those early days, is doing better than VP at Calvin Klein.
It wasn't, but it got to that. And this was something that I remember literally making route maps about how much this is going to pay. Rent's going to be this, how much, like that. So if I did 5 clubs and I got $15, that's not much. That's 70. And then I got to do 4 more. That'll cover the rent. And that's how I figured things out. And then, I got a job for $400. That's great. That covers. That's how I worked it.
And for you, there was no safety net because it's not like the parents could bankroll anything. Like you were really on your own.
I was on my own, but I really pushed it. I really worked hard. I knew I was good.
Yeah.
And I saw how when I go into the clubs, I saw how I thought everyone, because you make people laugh and feel good.
Yeah.
And my little edge was like intelligence. Bring them, when you're dead, you don't know you're dead.
Yeah.
Other people feel the pain.
Yeah.
Same as when you're stupid. So sometimes my job is to educate, to show them.
Ever the teacher.
Right. You show them.
Bobby, I'm really confused.
Go ahead.
Because you don't seem like an asshole. And you don't seem like a psycho. I mean, we haven't gotten there yet, but I feel like there's a real particular kind of stereotype about stand-ups that you are not meeting for me. Meaning, I feel like a lot of stand-ups are facing a lot of demons.
Oh, yeah. I hear you. Because I've had a lot of friends, and my wife and I, she goes, oh, wow, he killed himself. Or this one did that. Or it
draws
divorced.
A certain kind,
yeah,
it draws a certain kind of brilliant mind,
right?
Courageous mind, but like kind of troubled mind sometimes.
Freddie Prinze, that was the name I was.
Freddie Prinze, okay, there you go. Not the junior, the original.
Right.
So this is very interesting. You're really like breaking a paradigm for me right now, because unless
I
you're
saw
hiding...
that very plain with comics.
Yeah.
I mean, I still walk in. If I'm in New York and I got an hour or 2 off, I'll run from my apartment. I'll go down to the Comedy Cellar.
Yeah.
And I'm watching some of the comics before they put, Bobby, you're here. Would you like to go on? Sure. All right, Bobby, you'll go on next. But I'm watching the guy talking. I was fucking and I cunt the girl.
Right,
this,
exactly.
And I'm going, oh my God.
Yeah.
So they come over, they introduce themselves to me, and I go, hi, how you doing? And then some of them will come over in other places. Hey, Bob, can you watch my set and see something, And I'll go, well, shave the mustache and the beard.
And stop being such an asshole.
You're hiding behind yourself.
So at what point does Jill enter this picture? Jill being your lovely wife of how many years?
35.
When does she enter this picture? Where are you on this trajectory?
Well, I was I was married before.
Okay.
For not even a year.
Great. Starter marriage?
Yes, because all my friends, I was doing comedy and running around like a nut, and all my friends were getting married and having children.
Right.
And I was like 28, 27. And I'm going, is this the time? Is this what you do? Because I do want to have a family. And the girl I was seeing, I don't want to mention her.
Sure, that's fine.
She still lives in my building in New York.
Wow.
And we were dating, but I was seeing girls on the road. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she was like, I'd really like to, think we should get married. I go, no, she was an agent. She still is. And I said, oh, you don't want to get married now. Come on, because I didn't know.
But you also felt the momentum in your career moving.
Yes. And I said, okay, let's do it. And then I saw different examples for myself. Her mother wanted us to come up and have dinner with them. And I said, why'd I play basketball on Monday?
Right.
But you're home now. Let's go. And we drove up to their house in New Rochelle, and I go up there and I'm sitting and I see the brother and her sister, good kids. But you could tell the mother's the boss and the father's like fixing furniture out of his ass.
Sure.
And I'm looking at this and I'm going, and then the mother turns to me while we're preparing dinner. She's setting the table. She goes, you're going to marry my daughter, and I don't even know who you are. And I jumped up and I said, Bobby Collins, it's a pleasure to meet you. And the boy and the girl laughed. She was insulted.
Of course.
Even the husband,
Yeah.
And I saw how it was going to be, so I just said, hey, listen to the girl. You stay here with your parents. I'm going to get back into Manhattan.
Yeah.
Because I don't want Yeah. And then the mother killed herself.
Oh my God.
Yeah, her mother put the because she had something going on with her.
You never should have said that to her, Bobby.
They didn't
your
know
fault.
it
No, I'm
then.
just kidding.
It's later.
God,
And
that's
then,
horrible.
then the father called me up one day, I can't believe I'm telling you. Called me up one day, and he was this pretty successful guy, and he asked me if I would do last rites for his wife.
Jesus
And I wanted
Christ.
to say she fucking hated me.
Yeah, I was about to say,
You know?
not a fan.
I go, ugh. I said, sure, I'll do it. And I went over to a friend's house who's really sharp, and we sat down and wrote something very
Nice.
that's nice, but at the same time, adding stuff to it, like what we should be like in life, and da-da-da-da.
All right.
You have to educate.
We have to educate.
So I did that, and it didn't even last a year. I knew it wasn't right away. And she wanted me to go to a counselor. I went into the counselor. The counselor looked at me, and she said, "You have your mind made up, don't you?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "I'm out of here." And she goes, "Okay, go." And I left, and that was it.
Well, good for you. I mean, good for you in the sense of we've had lots of different stories. We've had a lot of first marriages on this podcast that then lead to very long, happy marriages like yours. And I think there is a lesson in there of like, it's okay to listen to your gut. And of course you should try and make something work if there's something workable, but also like it's also okay to trust and listen to yourself.
Right.
So you're married for a year or less, and then you meet Jill when?
I was performing at a club that Howard Stern took over in New Jersey, upstairs above a restaurant. Beautiful looking club. And he called me and he said, "Bobby, would you open the club for us that night?" And I go, "Yeah, sure. How much?" Remember, it's a business. Sometimes comics forget. And I go, "What are you getting as an opening act?"
Yeah.
He goes, $500. I go, "You should be getting 15 now."
Yeah.
They don't see that because... I used to say to places, the big clubs around the country when I was coming up, I'd say, "Hey, my name's Bobby Collins, and I'd love to work your club." And they go, "Well, yeah, I've heard your name." I go, "What do you pay?" He goes, "Well, we wouldn't have you in as the headliner. We'd have you in as an opening act." I go, "What do you pay opening acts?" "Well, $200. I go, "No hotel, no airfare, no."
Yeah.
No. I go, "Okay, listen. When you do decide to, here's my phone number. Give me a shout."
Yeah.
And that's how I teach the other. And then I used to get a lot of calls because then I went on the Tonight Show. And then these people would all call. I go, money. It's a business.
It is. And I think especially women, because there are a lot of women who listen to this podcast, that can be sometimes hard to ask for.
Right.
Because I think still now in this day and age, if a man does it, it's considered like assertive and directional and a good thing to do. And like if a woman does it, it's like kind of an entitled, like, ugh, you haven't paid your due or whatever.
The best comics ask, male or female.
The best
it's a
comics.
business.
Yeah, you gotta ask. Right. And I think that's probably a good life lesson more broadly.
And I was up at what's his name show. Up in New Jersey. What was
Howard Stern?
Howard. And
that guy, Howard Stern, who called you?
I know. But I don't like a lot of these people. So she came in. She was the manager or waitress, not a manager, lady. And she came in, she said, "Here, you guys should have some drinks," and like that. And she bent down and put them down. And her butt was right there in front of me. And I was like, I looked up. And I was like, "Oh God!" And then and then she turned around and she had these eyes, huge.
Please tell me this is Jill we're talking about.
Jill.
I was like listening to the story.
And
like,
I went,
"Where the fuck is this story?"
I know.
going?
And I looked at her and I went, "Excuse me." She goes, "Don't say a word to me." I go, "Why?" She goes, "I heard you're a snake." And I go, "Who told you that?" And she pointed to a guy that is. A manager to Drew Carey and somebody else, Tim Allen. I go, "No, he's a snake. He's going to try to get in your pants. Me, I'm going to wine you. I'm going to dine you. I'm going to take you out. We're going to open the car door for you. But then I'm going to look to get in there." And she
then I will
cracked
try and
up,
get your pants.
and she saw my show, and she said, "This guy's funny." And then afterwards, I said, "Why don't we go for a drink?" And we went for a drink, and we were cracking up and laughing. And next thing you know, I asked her for her phone number, and I called her about 2 weeks later, and her roommate or someone got on the phone saying, I'm sorry, she's not here. And I hear her in the back going, tell him I'm not here. And I go, I hear her telling you that she's not there. And the girl's laughing and like, well, anyway, I went back to work at a club, not that same club in New Jersey. And the girl that worked there worked at that other club that had closed. So I said, what happened to She goes, she works down there. She goes, you two fit so much. I go, how far does she work from me? She goes, about 25 minutes. So in between shows on a Saturday, I drove down to where she was working. And she was, I looked at her and she was bartending. And I looked at her, I went, excuse me, can I? She went, hey, how are you? You know?
Yeah.
And from that day forward, we dated.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
And for Jill, did she similarly like want a family? Was that?
Yes,
Okay.
because she came from 8 brothers and she was the only girl.
Oh my God.
And the youngest. So she got no attention and they treated her, and 5, 6 of them have died.
God, that's horrible.
I know,
That's horrible.
But
Catholic?
Yeah.
What is that?
Catholic.
Okay.
Look at her. Catholic?
It's just a lot of kids. It's like,
I know.
Okay. Okay. So how old were you guys when you got married?
What was I? I was like, she was 25. I was 37.
Okay. So an
12 years
older
old.
man.
Yeah. Oh,
He's an older man.
but she tells everyone he was so immature.
Well, it takes, the women are always more mature.
There's
some balancing.
women hold the key if they but knew it.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, we do, but nobody believes us because we won't do the whole guns thing. And now, if women had guns, everybody would be fucked.
Right. But they're smarter than men.
That's the thing. I don't disagree with that. So you guys get married. How long until you're having your first daughter?
I'd say we dated for 5 years.
Dated for 5 years.
And then we got
love
married.
A slow burn.
I remember going across the street with her in Manhattan, going to a show or something on Broadway. And she goes, no, it was a movie. She goes, where are we going? I knew exactly what she was saying. I go, we're going to the movie. She goes, you know what I mean. She goes, this was September 3rd. She goes, if you don't ask me to marry by the end of the month, I'm through. I waited to the last day and I married. And
what a pain in the ass.
I know. She still tells us.
And at that point, you had like really now established yourself as a career comic.
Yes. And Rosie O'Donnell selected me to take over for her. She worked on a show called VH1 Stand-Up Spotlight. And she left and she goes, I'm going to give it to Bobby Collins. He was, then they called me up one day and they go, hey, you're the new host of da-da-da-da. I go, how much?
Of course.
And they said, and it was great. And I did that for a year and a half. Then they cut out comedy on VH1. But by that time, then I was getting calls to do not talk shows, game shows. I didn't want to do game shows.
You have the teeth for game shows. You do.
I didn't want to do them. And there was well-known ones, but they go, you should use Bobby Collins, Bobby. And I'd get called and I'd go, I didn't grow up in my life because every time I turned it on or this one, I was like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to go, what's behind curtain number 3?
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. I mean...
But
Had I looked at
you
it
saw
now,
some of these other guys that you came up with, right? Like Seinfeld was around your time.
Drew Carey. We
Drew
all knew each
Carey.
other.
You all knew each other.
Yeah.
They all pursued these other avenues.
Right.
But for you, it was always going to be the stage.
I was a stand-up comic, and to me, it was a gift. So I just pursued it. So when they'd ask me to do a part in a movie, I'd do it.
Sure.
And I did a few, and then they asked me to go on TV, I'd do it. But I'm just...
Yeah. You know what you like.
I had a great career. I still have.
I was about to say, you're still very much
The
working.
phone's ringing.
Yeah. And, okay, so you have you have your first daughter. And
Hallie.
And this is the one who just got married?
Yes. Thank God. Take her. Go. Oh, we didn't grow up privileged like that. They grew up here she grew up in Santa Monica. I even used it on the stage. You'd get a kick out of it. I look at it, I go, my daughter just got married. And I was the officiant.
Of course.
And I go, this is the one I really don't like that much. And the audience die. And then I go, because the way she speaks, she'd always say, Dad, she said she was going to call me, but she never called. So I don't know what to do. Should I call her back? And I looked at her, I go, do you really speak like that? Jill hit me. Bobby. I go, what? Listen to the way she speaks. So you got to get back at Los Angeles.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
We weren't white privileged, this, that had their own house. Friends, her friends was, I don't know, the well-known guy, all these.
Fancy pants kids.
Yeah, all these.
And so you have her, you have these ideas about what you want to be in terms of a dad.
Yes.
And how do you balance that, which was an idea that was very present, very involved.
Right.
With a pretty demanding touring schedule. How do you balance that?
I had the right wife.
Say more.
Huh?
Say more.
I would say to her, give you an example. I said, hey, honey, I got a call. They want me to go out on tour with Julio Iglesias. And she goes, we were looking for a house. She goes, go. She goes, make the money and,
How
so
much? She said, how much?
I know. How much? So we bought that house. And I remember when we bought it 39 years ago. And it was $1 million. And I looked at her and I go, are you kidding me? We can't. My father said never. She goes, Bobby, we've got it. Let's buy. We bought the house. Now it's worth $11 million.
Jesus Christ.
I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
I married her. Now she bought a condo in Delray, Florida. It's beautiful. She bought the other apartment in New York.
She's got the vision.
She sees it.
She's got the vision.
Me, I'd still be living on my couch or my studio apartment, which I love. I'd still have those, cinder block with the board going across. That was my table that I'd sit and put my feet on, have a sandwich and watch television.
And so has Jill always been stay at home?
Oh, no.
No.
Jill was a Pilates instructor for 20 years. She was
wow.
a waitress.
Wow.
She, oh, God.
Always busy.
Always. Matter of fact, even though we have 3 women that come in every day and for Maddie, Jill she's out there running around now.
Yeah.
She just doesn't. I go, honey, that's why I take her with me. We go to New York for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
We were just in Florida for 3 or 4. I have to work, but she's there.
And so was there anything about being a parent when you became one that kind of rocked your world, that you were like, oh shit, this is harder than I thought or different than I thought? Were there any expectations?
I just assumed I'd have a boy. So when you have a girl, girls love their fathers. They just love their daddies. And I just fell in love with her. And Jill would say to me, Bobby, don't say that to her. Because I go, honey, I wasn't brought up that way. They're going to have to this, that. Yeah. You got to teach them. You got to tell them no. She was tough.
Jill was.
No. Jill was tough on her.
Right.
But she would let her get away with things because where we live.
I see.
I was like, you do what you want. But I would be a good dad.
Right.
She still says, my daughter, Hallie, you're the best dad.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And then we had the tough time came when we had Madison, a special needs daughter.
So let's talk about Maddie. So
how God gives you a gift. It's wonderful.
How old was Hallie?
About 4 or 5.
Okay.
And then Maddie came along.
And before Maddie was born, obviously like imaging, diagnostic stuff and pregnancy was totally different then. So when Maddie comes into the world, she is a surprise on every level. Is that right?
Unbelievable. Matter of fact, the doctor called us in his office and I kind of didn't like him anyway, but Jill handled it. He called us in his office when she was born and he sat us down and he says, listen, you might want to consider putting your daughter and putting her away somewhere in a home or something.
When was this conversation had? When she was born?
When she was born.
Jesus Christ.
And he said, you might want to put her in a home and like that because chances are she won't live till 10.
What was the condition or what is the condition?
Chromosome disorder.
Okay.
And I said to him nicely, why don't you go fuck yourself? Because that's my kid. And if it's one finger, that's my kid's finger. Yeah. And I go, Jill, let's get up and go. And she's, Bobby, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And we left.
Oof, I just got chills. I just couldn't imagine.
She's 30.
Right.
She doesn't walk very well. She doesn't talk. But like the girl, she was leaving today with the girls, and the girls hollered out to me, Bobby, I was in there reading the newspaper. I go, yeah. She goes, she wants you to give her a kiss, because she goes like this, where's Daddy? Where's Daddy? And I run in there.
He's tapping the top of his head, guys.
Yeah, that means where is he?
Aww.
You know, and I got to tell you, Jill and I have discussed it, especially since we live in California, see all these people divorce and this and that. We looked at each other, and she goes, that was probably one of the biggest things, a gift to us to keep us strong together and loving, and because of Madison, because you never know. I was a comic going out on the road, and I could have this and fell into this. Loyalty, you know, family first.
Wow. And so Maddie's 30.
30.
And
she's a pisser.
What's life like for her day to day, and how I know that you've got a team of awesome ladies who are here to support her, but you know, are you guys having dinner together at night? What's her life look like?
Jill cooks. She's a very good cook, matter of fact.
And a very good green juice maker.
And Hallie, she is. And Hallie married a chef. He owns like 7 restaurants. So they get
her
along.
bougie upbringing did something.
Right. Jill cooks for 3 girls. So you have to, the cream rises to the top. Shit floats for a while. These eventually became the ones that we have are the cream. They are just wonderful. You could see in their hearts how they feel for Maddie. And Maddie, you could see it in her how she feels for them.
Yeah.
So Jill cooks every night for 7 of us.
Wow.
The 3 women, Maddie, Jill, and me.
Wow.
So it's 6, but the dog's a girl. And I got to tell you, it's a little rough on me. You know, I'm laughing with them, I'm having fun, but it's rough for a comedian. You know, that's why I come out here.
Yeah.
You know, Jill built this for Maddie.
We're in an ADU, sort of off of the house.
Right in the back. This was the garage in my office. And Jill built this for her just as soon as the COVID hit. She hasn't moved in yet. It's been almost 4 years.
Wow.
So we've been fighting the state to get that help that we're getting. And thank God the women that we have is wonderful. The ones with us, they feel like we're their family.
But how was it for you when Maddie was born? I know that's a long time ago now. Yeah. Of course, nobody wants this when you are bringing a life into the world. I mean, it's a blessing, and now you see that. Right. But at the time, that must have been really hard and for both of you.
It was, because remember, I'd work usually from Thursday through Sunday. I'd fly home on Sundays, wherever I was around the country. You know, I'd do a theater on Friday night, do one on Saturday, leave on Thursday to get there, and then come home Sunday. We'd all have a dinner together, you know, and then during the day, I'd get up at 7 to get Maddie up with Jill, and Jill would brush her teeth, comb her hair. I'd put her on the toilet, change her clothes. This was our daily routine, and it was like, and sometimes Maddie was like, and it was really rough. And thank God I have the woman that I married, that strong woman who saw houses to buy, who saw things, because I wouldn't know. Someone else would have crashed.
You were consumed already.
Yes, constantly. And so I'd say to her, you want me to cancel this show? No, go work. You know, and then it all worked out. And Maddie became our gift. She's, you know, when God gives, she doesn't talk or walk, but to me, she speaks volumes. And I must be pretty special if God gave them to me.
And what about Hallie in this context? Because that's got to be hard for her, too. She's got a younger sister who needs a lot of attention.
Right.
What's that dynamic like?
We're working very hard, and it's been about months now, and it costs $22,000 already, to get Hallie to be, God forbid something happens to me and Jill, to be her, take care of Maddie, or to put her in a place. And I know Hallie's the type of person that would never put her in a home. Yeah. She's not that type. She would put her in her own house and get help. Yeah. Which is great. Yeah. So we brought her up that way, right?
Yeah.
You know, because, so she's
just because she likes nice shit doesn't mean there's a problem, Bobby.
You're right. Look at the princess I'm talking to. I'm calling your husband. Hey, I have her here. She's wild.
Yeah. Do you know that jewelry person? If you could put him in touch with your jewelry guy, that'd be great for me. can talk about that later.
We went over to him in New York and bought, when we were in New York, we bought her his engagement, her engagement ring and his.
Full circle.
I didn't know how you do this.
I know, it's a whole thing.
Oh.
But for Hallie, she is a good girl.
She's a good girl.
And
she is.
She grew up fancy, but she's a good girl. For Hallie, I guess one of the questions that I'm trying to get at is I can imagine putting myself in her shoes that she probably both deeply loves her sister and her family.
She
and
does.
Also, being a first kid is always, you feel a lot of responsibility. Usually, like the oldest always feels some sense of responsibility of having to be in charge and have their shit together.
Right.
If I'm typecasting, which I am. But also, it's got to be hard when your younger sibling does need so much time and attention from everyone else in the family. Have you guys ever talked about that? Has that ever come up? Or has it ever been like a point of difficulty to say, like, hey, mom and dad, like, I'm feeling a little left out? Did that ever come up?
Yes, it did. It came up in the sense that you give her so much attention that it's taking away. And we would make it from day one, since Maddie was born, that we love you both so much and that she's going to require a lot of attention, physical and mental and everything. And it has no bearing upon you. So she rebelled.
Yeah.
Her rebellion was, getting high.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, God, I would have straightened this out.
Yeah.
Her dad, the way I grew up.
Right.
And Jill grew up in the same.
Yeah. But you kind of knew where it was coming from.
Yes. It was a rebellion against our youngest.
Yeah. Well, just the whole dynamic.
It was.
Because as the youngest, who was obviously my parents' favorite, or at least my mom's favorite.
And you had 3?
Yeah. I know that my siblings, they can tell who they think. They can tell.
Bobby, she was your favorite.
Right. They can tell.
Right. Of course.
Is that avoidable? Do you
think? I think when she's here all the time, if she's here for dinner, we treat her like gold.
Right.
We treat her like gold. And she'll run over to her sister and give her a big kiss and hug. Hi, Maddie. So it evens out.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah. And for both of your kids, they're in very different stages of their life. Maddie is 30. She will maybe move into this beautiful place you've made her.
Please.
And
Jill and I can travel a lot more and be together a lot because Jill is the boss.
So you're setting Maddie up for her next chapter of being a little bit more independent, being able to have this sort of new life setup. And Hallie's embarking on a new chapter as well, expecting a child.
Yes. Good luck.
For your kids entering this next stage, 2 questions. 1, how do you view your role as dad? Does that change at all? And 2, if there are things that you really wish for them in this sort of next phase of their lives, what would they be?
Well, for Hallie, I want happiness. She's married a good guy. She's and again, when he asked us, Jill and I, if we could take her hand in marriage, I went, take her, go. And Jill kicked Bobby.
Make it sweet.
Right. So he's a good guy. So the fact that they mingled, that just fit together, I was like, oh my God. Good for her. She always wanted to have a kid like we did, and to see her coming into how we were, it's really satisfying.
Yeah.
And we're going out tonight to take her out to dinner and buy her a Christmas tree because her husband is away. And then Maddie, I love the kid.
You should see this man's face. It's like there's fireworks bursting from his eyeballs.
When I get up in the morning and now there's people helping, but I run right over and they move their chairs because they know he's going to give her a big kiss. And I go, Maddie, and she'll move her cheek over to kiss me.
Sweet.
And then she'll ask before I leave, can he get Daddy, give him a kiss goodbye. She's just wonderful.
And so for her, what are your sort of hopes in her next chapter?
Do you know when it's just like Julius, when I was telling you about him, you could look into her eyes and you see them there, that she's there.
Yeah.
She doesn't know how to say it. She doesn't know how to, but she's there. And I use that for us, for me and her.
Yeah.
I see that. And Jill knows it too. She goes, Bobby, she's there. I go, I know, but we can't. So we get every kind of, something to work with, which she can communicate. Something, people that can talk to her and show her how to do things. Now she drinks water by herself. She never did that. We take her after we brush and take her to the bed. I go, pillows now. And there's 10 pillows on her table. We throw them over to her. She picks them up. I load them up off her bed. Then I go, come on, go to bed. Go to bed. And she'll walk around. Then she'll look at us like, give me a kiss. Come on,
So it sounds like for your hope for her is just continuing this path of learning more skills, gaining more independence, little by little.
Yes.
Over time.
She's just wonderful.
Oh my gosh, Bobby, we have really covered a lot of ground. And I think the through line here is love and positivity.
Yes.
And being a little bit of a wise ass.
Thank you.
Keeping everybody around you grounded, keeping yourself grounded.
Oh.
And having a partnership where, for you and Jill, it sounds like everybody really knows what their job is and what they're good at.
Oh, and
but like,
sometimes
when do you want to
clash.
I was gonna say, like, when do you want to kill each other?
Oh, that pops up.
And was there ever a time where you guys were just like, I don't want to be married anymore?
Well,
never at the same time, maybe.
Right. It was. There was times when I was like, she's so hard on me about, Bobby, get this, do this. I go, what? Or if I'll answer her like, do it. Why can't? And there's just, she goes, why are you snapping? I hate when you snap. Maybe we should see a counselor. And then we look at each other. We were made for each other. We knew it. And we laugh. We look at each other. And then after we get over it.
Now, this is one last question for me, just based on where you are in your trajectory. And this has come up in some recent episodes with other guests who are more toward my stage. The financial thing. You have always, it sounds like, earned more than Jill since you've been together.
Yes.
Has that ever been a source of stress, contention, question for either of you?
Yes, for me. I'll come up with... For example, I just made we love New York, so I just made next week for us to go on the 17th to the 23rd. So 21st, 4 days just to feel New York and I can be in that apartment.
Yeah.
It costs $2,200 round trip.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Oof, yeah.
I usually pay $500 or $400 for me because I get credits and all that, and it's $200.
Yeah.
I go, okay, let's go. But I'm the one that worries about the money, not the fact that we don't have it.
Yeah.
But $75,000 for your daughter's wedding. What? I don't know this stuff. The poor kid.
Right.
She calms me down. Bob, we have it. Pay it. We have it. Pay it. Go. Right. But I still get the edge. I'm saying to myself sometimes she's cooking for all these people every night.
Right.
Every night. That's 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Plus she pays the housekeeper because she stayed over with Maddie the 4 nights that we were away. That's $1,100. She looks at me.
You can't stop doing the math in your head.
And she goes, stop it.
Yeah.
And it's true. I stop. It takes a while, but I stop.
And was there ever a point where you were just like, oh, if you were earning more, Jill, like in your head, not necessarily if you may have said that loud, but if you were earning more, this would be less stressful? Or did you always feel like this is on me?
That was on me.
Yeah.
She worked in a restaurant and she was a Pilates instructor for 20 years and jamming, working hard. And probably the last 8-10 years, she gave it up. And I said, what would you like to do if you can now? She goes, I'd like to learn to cook more, the cooking school. And I go, oh, wow, go do it. Because now, I'm getting older. She's getting older. Let's go do things now. So we're going to do it. And if money pops up, which it does.
How much?
You guys, she's so wise. I got to tell you, you've asked the best questions, and I've done a bunch of them. You've asked the best questions that I've been on many podcasts. We usually got to be funny. You got to do the. You're very, very. It's nice to speak to a smart young lady.
Well, you just made my day, and this whole experience has made my day. And I'm very impressed with myself that I didn't cry when we talk about how much you love your kids because it was really beautiful. And I'm going to look for excuses to stop by to get more of Jill's green juice. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
And it was my pleasure to meet you.
And now you're stuck with me. Sorry.
You're in. You are.
Team, I need your help. If you love it here, please like and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the Substack for full access to this episode's show notes and join the discussion. And of course, follow me on Instagram at Mutha, MUTHA.life for a daily look at all things Mutha. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another Chat in the Closet. This podcast was produced by Mutha Life, music by Ronan Landa. See you next time.